Oh, good evening. Bolo domore chibi ra no bara chibi ge sarva dang tam chi chenbe war tu ju bara chiba tam chi je su chibi ma nam ka dang nyambe sem chen tam chi de wa dang de dong ra dang chi nyor tu la na mi ba yang da bara zo be chang cho ren bo chi to bara cha.
All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment.
Ji tu sang ma ji ji hua tu lu nga yi song ge wa la gu ru ru ma xi hua tu lu nga yi song ge wa la gu ru ru ju te ren ne song de nian ma sang da sam ji hua tu lu nga yi song ge wa la gu.
For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue.
Ja, okej, nu är det så, okej. Ja, den är 다른 저 카르산테 드리엔사 다 카르산테 쇼스로인데 이거 티나치나 니제 숨스를 그들이 마음치나 다참 니제 심볼라 로 마장나 특별 멤버라 저와니 스텐도 예사를
minor chu nalare khaba khare chu naladok
쇼르 추주세티나 쇼르 로라
dini dini tongzen
주바 된사를
disco ma minor chu mare
쇼르 추주세 쇼르 추주
minor chu gelare nolare
你现在是什么东西？节连接，我连接这些，节连接，稍微求救线路。
okay tongzen to pa ke wait a minute nin che kolara
他们接前波了，罗马江那去推派，咱们推派那边确实就是，确实玩意思。他们接前波是我讲过的是，
是
好个多，
disco
去主管的。
boy I just can't find this with the oh yes okay I found it okay I did not know
知道是的。他们接前波了，他罗马江那推派那边确实是。我在这张起呢，他对人家是罗江过的是，强人家强学生的过学的。 这面呢，真的是关键吧？他怕是长久成这个的，但今天中国给公司呢，这块其中前怕身体因是哪个吧？所以我在昂元做后在那边你对，到后可么成吧？简单事情对给你们什么这块钱包的也是，除了可以成立了主要的吧？简单事情对给你简单是长久是把的提对给你就是呢，这块钱包是来的是么从嘛那个这今天中国这嘛的是但是。 특별 지중 체벌 선티레스 다 장초 세미오나 특별 침보레스 장초 세미나 특별 침보 마레스 어제는 장초 선택해 침보레스 니마 저거지 아드샤 볼 쇼데리 전에 니마 저이테 저 종레스 저거지 지바도 제 내저 지도는 냠내 상황 냠내 지도 내저지 요사로 这地方面被这个top song 始终类似，它工厂就生需要什么了？
코카드 톱송?
地方面被这个 top song 里面这个 junshop 这个东西 top songs 啊，但是这种种多这的，真的在强的人家强说甚至都可以情报啥的意思。
So we are in the 10 ways to go astray. And so here there are, this is verse number 6. And it says, when you don't train your mind in great compassion, the method aspect, your path can stray into that of the lesser vehicles. So we need to cultivate love and compassion, bodhicitta, and especially we need bodhicitta. Lord Jigden Sumgyeon said in the Gongjik that the difference between the vehicles lies in the mind generation, the motivation of bodhicitta. He said that to refute a common view that the vehicles, like a Mahayana and so on, is location based, because, for example, sometimes people say that Tibetans are Mahayana practitioners because Tibet is the place where Chenrezig came to tame beings there. And so therefore Tibet is a Mahayana place. And so Tibetans are Mahayana practitioners, therefore. And Jigden Sumgyeon said, this is not necessarily the case. Only if one has bodhicitta, then one is truly a Mahayana practitioner. And if one doesn't have bodhicitta, then one is not a Mahayana practitioner. Also, once when Atisha came to Tibet, there was someone who practiced Hevajra. And then Atisha would comment on that person's accomplishment. And he said that, oh, this person, this Hevajra practitioner, he attained the results of the Hinayana. And so that was, he said that probably because this person lacked true bodhicitta, although he practiced the Tantras and Vajrayana. So it really shows that bodhicitta is so important. We need to cultivate love and compassion on the path.
真的，就基本的下这种类型的嘛，他后来拍的可能那么有啥的话，他他妈那时候玩的是小给你这样子，他说玩的是啥？他那没些，说是零八啥的土地，真的没些可能插在家，说玩的是那么这种拿了可以去，他没些是零八去的，在哪里是在去要出发当啥的话，这当地真的，大家当那么什么各地间间把意思。听到他听到了，俺就强调身体是永远的，就是能别个的意思的，跟别个的情报意思送出的类似。
And also, when Atisha came to Tibet, he had many different teachers and lamas that he encountered. But so once in the morning, someone I came and no, he came and joined his palm in prayer, and he prayed. And somebody asked, like, who is this special one that you're praying to? And he said that it is Lingpa, because generally, he said, all the lamas have been very kind to me, but the little bodhicitta that I have in myself is entirely due to the kindness of the master Selingpa.
他这里是他对吧？很多像的啥，这对吧？他写了，当你老嘛讲呢，最近可别浪呢，确实他写了在东北你，他老讲过了，他我说你对，当你人家英国讲说，难道东北你人家有怕的，长久存在的，工作长久存在写了你过去啥的吧？这帮强人家长久存在，他我说当时情报有了，他妈穷当，这里写了东北你多特别了，这老讲特别在偏学啥的，真的。真的接近可别了，确实啊，强人家强说什么地步了？给的，这话他们先别恐怕，特别搞来考过差的有的是，就当的对他就差不多，当时差些差话就过呢，没把说过呢，真的写了东北你过个的是，这他们人家情报的写了东北你送出这你们去过学啥了哇？ 我真的他当这位写了前两天哦，庆祝的是他这的，你总把你这个他当这位写了，啊，样写了当这位他，听你不在也写送等这个嘛的是我的跟庆祝的是你可帮助嘛的是。
And then moving on to the next verse, number 7. When you don't train your mind in emptiness, the wisdom aspect, whatever you do, can stray into the ways of samsara. So we also need wisdom. So we need the wisdom that realizes emptiness. We need both. We need wisdom and compassion, the method and wisdom. And we often speak about this concept of we need emptiness that has compassion at its core. And we need the relative and the ultimate practice together. So we cannot leave it with just one. If we only train the mind in compassion, of course, it brings benefit, but that alone will not bring liberation and complete enlightenment. Compassion certainly is a cause for enlightenment, but compassion alone still cannot destroy the more subtle grasping. So that is because we have very strong self-grasping and we have to eliminate that. And compassion it can destroy self-grasping, but not the very subtle clinging. And for that, we need the wisdom that realizes the emptiness. But then if there's only wisdom without compassion, then we also cannot reach the result. So one alone is not enough. We need wisdom and method of wisdom that realizes emptiness and compassion. We need them together.
真的，他起码那么点事情，有的新郎还是总是呢，想说忙他给你面给你没给钱是钱吧的。人家那说这忙吧，没得一把汤，跟他吃也没得意思。你把心就吃就没事，但是你把吃完吃完的就图个没得意思。当你的汤才给位，当你的没得你不跟他吃多的是。我真的当你的汤才给位，根本上嘛太东西，是我这个当你的他没得你给的，真的你把这吃些吃完把就图个意思，根本上嘛他当你多下去真的，我这这种多。我等我做这些老人呢，有啊，这开始呢，写了米呢，跑到青啊，做不清楚头吧，没那边做不清楚头个嘛的意思。他上电影可是没错吧？他上电影可是我们的写了光把这些老人种多，我这他当年人不见的，那么他们那玩意他话的是我这样的这样两个结果来听他比你呀嘛这的是。
There's a text called the Pramana Vartika, and it says in there that love or compassion is not in direct opposition to the blindness of ignorance. So there's not a direct opposition, but and so for this reason, compassion alone cannot cut through the very subtle grasping or obscuration. And whereas it says that wisdom or the emptiness, seeing emptiness, that is in direct opposition, direct contradiction to ignorance. And therefore, because it is directly opposing ignorance, emptiness cuts through ignorance. And we cultivate the method in order to realize this emptiness, essentially. And then in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, if one lacks wisdom, even if one has the other 5 perfections, without wisdom, one can still not attain enlightenment. So therefore, cultivating the wisdom that possesses the method and is free from the 3 spheres, that is the Bodhisattva's practice. So essentially, to have emptiness with compassion at its core is really the unmistaken path. So we need method and wisdom united.
等他结巴他气象的啥，结巴他今天去经过嘛，那接近 지thiên 그 지한 저 어떤 지thiên 추지 보트 전고 녀 맞나 근데 저 냠나시나 지thiên 추지 공항 쇼로 그랬다 매년으로 장도 현도 다제 여러와 담상 보통도 그냥 다 소바다 근데 진도 와서 다되는 데 공항 쇼 어쨌든 마주나 될 메가바치 되네 되네 인도잖아 가도 그남데 사박 토토고 말했어 我这里我这在咱家那起工作的，所以就秋季在这里的是刚做咱家那起过来是，我这秋季通过年过来，通过年呢，我这呢，这往从马学的刚做起过来是，那张说在帮他们给钱包的，没他这边过去他种的，今天秋季在门口啊，咱们没超过那的呢，他看了三多月嘛，看了从那先落，比如说在那里，这先把落种到空。
Then verse number 8 says, when you don't equalize the 8 worldly concerns, whatever you do can stray into embellishing worldly life. And so if we do not overcome the 8 worldly concerns, then no matter what we do, will somehow become tainted. For example, we constantly we do things because we think it will bring us a good reputation or fame or praise. It will make us look good. But then when the opposite happens and we don't get that, then we are unhappy about it. And that is because we are controlled by those 8 worldly concerns. And as long as we are controlled by, being tossed between like and dislike, we cannot attain liberation. So it's essential to not allow the mind to become controlled by those 8 worldly concerns in our practice. We have to try our best to keep that under control, to not become controlled by them. Milarepa had said that when I merely hear the word of the 8 worldly concerns, it feels I feel nauseous. Just like when if you have a food poisoning, you're sick and you feel very nauseous, then you can't eat anything. You feel very sick just by thinking of food. So that's how he felt when he just heard of the name, the word, the 8 worldly concerns.
当俺说这来长波把这说人就看出去穷当工，这没啥的是这样过来。我没啥的是光他们那人就看出去说宁波没把这的是这样出去噻，我这里这里出去嘛，先去弄图呀，我才去去学的。但是我从年来起呢，在每年的我这送才去去送的，的是哈这让他们这让他们是罗马托本的强路哇，我前几天中国送有了가지장에 pen 치와라 스부 가지장 가리나 자라 가리나 다 강기 pen 말을 치와라 제로게 치와텔레스 와치와 티가 가야 폐게 말을 년년도 초암자시 주변적 가를 뭐는 티종 가야 저 투 마시 시야 투소 됐습니다 어 치원 지편 샤야 양준보다 치원 지편 차바 가리나 다 좀만도 상원에서 다시把这情况呢치원 지편 샤야 양준보다 최진자 송을 몰라 다 최진자 송을 몰라 究竟家下的什么那些，他自我研究我，他这宁波是，他有马班家是这个嘛咯，我真家送什么了是，把楼梯间都看门都送，是的，他什么要不，在都在落到山都门都，像他什么要不，这当送的啊。
And also for us, beginning and practitioners, if we want to if we want to decrease this control of the 8 worldly concerns, the best thing for us to reflect on is impermanence. Because if you can think of impermanence, then maybe you will also see that these 8 worldly concerns really are pointless. They really have no essence. And in that way, by remembering that they have no true essence, then you are also able to face them and overcome them easier. And so otherwise, if you pay no attention to that and even you practice, but you're still seeking fame and wealth and so forth, you will not enter the unmistaken path at all. Jigden Sumgön has said you should look at all these things or these attractions carefully. Those things that cause you to develop those 8 worldly concerns. They have no essence when you die. When you die, none of that will be of any help. Neither your companions, your spouses, your family members, your wealth, your fame, none of it will be of any help. And therefore, he says that all of the activities of the Dharma in this life, it's all a lie. It's all actually false. So if you really look at what they really are, you see that that's really how they are. They may appear beautiful like a rainbow in the sky, but if you think about it, it looks beautiful, but a rainbow doesn't have any essence at all. It will soon enough, it will disappear. So if you really think about it carefully, you will see that all of this has no essence. So therefore, he advises you should always look at your mind and ask yourself, is this going to stay? Am I going to stay or not? This is an important reflection.
다 그거 시간 전직사 근데 총비 제고 생리망나 만나 송투 쳐봐니 송도사 총바다 제고자 소소 제고 소리 담을 진다다 소소제 망보제 대반되마 원티 뭐송 되네 계속 상다 달아서 그래스 되네 다제 저는 다 침바바데도 내가 망보여 와서 지리도 내가 망보 초양 타바스 저야 계속 공부요我听你对现在想法现在想法在南州要去这是我说后的在说广州嘛但是这是后的说广州嘛这是应该人州忙不住工作松波人州贴送的在然后提起就给我主要在忙不去有的他那平时小学嘛是节课嘛是有啥的小学要让你嘛能把一把他说这是我这里这马上呢俺得大几大的这是这块3周给咱但我从前才到这块3周给噻那个人说话了俺这边7周给让我真六钱的ten du nam sin det chu nam da yang ta ba drop to ma de ste tu so sama ta la zo ro ge zo do an da kan du chi go zo na ji kan so mo tsu zo che da ro wa ke pa yin che da ro wa ke pa yin na da me to bu zhang ma ke pa res kan ke pa res na che me to da la man ho res che me to kan da no ge ma res na zhang se la na ka la por so de na zhang se na do na kan por ro ge me to no ba yo ma res 我在那里的，说啊，你们去，听到了嘛？说了，你们去投票去呢？我曾经去过的也算多。
你张姐的听到这个哪儿了？这什么的？
他张是就他在说其他他的在哪去哪儿给钱什么的，他在张是开的，那他在啥的，他俺从这边的我就有了。我在那这边才叫蛮多的，这听到了什么方面的，比如啥的吧，同大的其他的开发也是才整嘛的去了吧，其他的开发也，这买套肯当了，蛮多是买套才当，这老板看样有嘛的是，然后张子郎能看了包是我的，然后张子郎能看了包，对的，在片头啥的，看图片图了，张子在片头呀什么的，啊不是的，看图片图了，其实呢。我真的在俺买套是当农药嘛，蛮多话钱的，真的，所以你们那台蛮多话钱，那去买套蛮多那张是哪不是我这种的。
Okay. And the next verse, number 9, when you receive a great deal of respect from townspeople, you can stray into ingratiating yourself with the public. So this is when a lama or a monk goes around and mixes like with ordinary people in towns, and often like in the old days it happened that you would go and visit sponsors, places, your patrons' homes when they invite you for a puja, for performing a ritual, and then you're mixing with them, mingling with them, and a lot of time goes there. And there's a lot of things that you have to do to entertain them and to help them. And then by doing that, essentially, you really find the actual opportunity to practice the Dharma, and time just passes. And so there's some of these activities, for example, in Tibet, the people would and actually not just in Tibet, but often it's an Asian or Eastern tradition that people would make all kinds of ceremonies or rituals for different purposes. For example, for somebody who is alive or somebody who has passed and so on, there's different rituals where the lamas or the monks are invited to go and they conduct these rituals and ceremonies. And so then you're going to all these ceremonies, you're attending all these ceremonies, because if you don't go, then your sponsors might not be happy about that. And then you're worried about, if I don't go and then they're angry, then maybe our connection will break off. And then so the mind goes that way. And so then you think, what will happen when we don't have a connection anymore? And so in this way, if we think in this way, then we end up essentially just time passing by and we are not truly practicing the Dharma. And so Thich Nhat Hanh, he gave this example. He said that one has to be very skillful, like a bee that goes to the flower and takes the honey from the flower without harming the beauty of the flower, the radiance of the flower. The flower remains totally unharmed. In fact, the bee actually benefits the flower. It kind of fertilizes the flower, it helps the flower, but it leaves the flower again without leaving a trace, without harming the flower. And also at the same time, the flower, the honey doesn't harm the bee. So the bee doesn't get stuck in the sticky honey, but it can take it and leave unharmed. And so it is sort of a clean cut in a way. That flower is unharmed and the honey bee is unharmed. So similarly, when one goes and helps one sponsor or someone, then one needs to bring benefit to them. One doesn't want to upset their minds. One wants to bring benefit, but then also one doesn't want to get like stuck in the honey part. So then one wants to be able to help them and then again leave in a way that doesn't harm oneself or the sponsor.
大时期真的，我在这里样大时期样的就话题了。
嗯。
那有天当年就起呗，老没天呢，从小出去干有事。看见都老重要不有的，我老重要不有把起，看见人们也不行，推在你怕的是有把起。那老点不明那的，没拿从小出去，是我没拿从小出去的，从小就蛮多呀，从小起的推说才多这个的，从小啥的吧。
Then number 10 says, when your knowledge and powers are significant, but your mind is unstable, you can stray into becoming a performer of rituals for townspeople. So there are some people who are very learned and some are very good practitioners. But even so, if the mind is not completely stable, and even if one has developed some powers in the mind or some knowledge, but if the mind is not stable, then this can one's knowledge, one's abilities can just turn into a performance, like kind of a spectacle for others.
他其实没来这个重要了，可是说是这一步被东巴，这一步的了，这一路重要不有做，我听着蛮不写的了，这东巴这是，做的成把做错的是成把就是做把家的那些做的，
做亏的，
做把家对，做把家不，做的成把做错的是。Labdun Jema Lalaris, Labdun Jema Lalas, c'est pour moi, contre Chimbo, les Cedric Getcha Lalaris, c'est une dame de Labra. Labdun Jema Lalaris. Tenez, Nilu Métier, Nilu, that Métier, she went in the world. That's a Nayamnati, Shirama, Métier Bona, Niedoris. Rodu Métier, Rondoris, or Nilu Métier, or that gate course at Telemann, the gate course at the market is Labo. 我这在挺闹意的，他在人们女去清波节用那，这样在帕卡金大，他说在偏心都就亚光都在拉卡心呢，这可运动多的是几个其实呢，在偏修啥的上，所以说人们养他吧，这没讲话的，他长久在长久多呀，中国人中修在，但是我目前啊，参与去那的，这样推出做这个的是啥？ 可惜挺有的咋说，小美球拿有的，小美的球拿可是总是呢，他得冲球按照对比，常常话题的都会说和这可能这两年的说呢，他提纲。他过去在偏向呢，今天他偏向的老公嘛，可能先把这个之间能查实，这是把马起利用的是。我这他提纲两年提过的，这么多小米。
진짜 가리가리 말해.
아, 배창다 안다 맞아 이산이 양대 이름도 drop 디테일 다 맞나 내 바지 요나 pen 요나 pen 요 반다고 치나
어.
이나한테 칼라르스는 코 말에 신바지 이름도 drop 디 pen이스
어.
제 코로나 좀 상해 그거는 진짜 pen 요 근데 아 신바지 칼라르스 신바 마치 용이랬어 어 되는 되게 안 냠나 치고래스 가도 그래나 상만 냠나 치 이렇게 치고래 정도
And Miller Ripa said that sorry, the empty words of someone with great knowledge are meaningless. So the words of like someone educated person, scholar are empty words. When they debate and discuss with each other, they shout at each other like a hysterical woman screaming. But then, even though it sounds very impressive, they are not actually practicing. So they may speak big, but then in private, really, they spend all day just lying around sleeping. And so for someone like that, there are many ways to go astray, many deviations. And then and so also, even if one if somebody has some power in the practice, and maybe they they think that when they help a sponsor and perform a ritual for a sponsor, for example, and let's say the ritual was successful and it helped, then it all really was just to impress them, and people may do think that you hope that they will feel that, or that he's so powerful. But in truth, there's really no practice behind it. And then they just go from town to town and perform their rituals, and all their time and passes like that. And so for someone like that, it is said in Changme, Changme is a mountain dharma. So those town people, townspeople, they encounter a lot of obstacles, because even if there is a little bit of practice and they have some power, some sponsors may say, for example, somebody is sick and you perform a ritual for them, and then the person actually gets better, and then you actually think that no, that was great, now he's getting better. But then other sponsors may say, well, that was not because of him, but it was because of that other practitioner, somebody else's power, not his power. And then the practitioner's mind becomes unhappy. And so in any case, this is not where we find a real practice. That's the trap here. We need to actually put all of this into practice.
他针对就是咱让你节气呢，咱让你节气，咱两年期呢，在这个讲在养根啊，推出做嘛什么的，现在两年期呢，落电波期呢的，两年才把买小的，结果的也送到。
And so therefore, one has to control oneself, and also in a way be kind to oneself, and not just be carried away by fame and reputation and so forth, but really practice until a stable mind is achieved.
真的，他在确实就是从啊，其实norse çocuğuz. Da norse çocuğu o. Norse çocuğu te karesi tebatan doba norsa yo. Da tebatan doba insan da noan robe da. Teban doba şegi mare. Kaje zai teba sena da han zai lama da ina da teba se yo. 可以说说本家按照我，他说自己才把些先把那么要不成功的才把些，他们来成就用多少，但多半都强着，说说本家按照我年纪多，他你我他说自己给我才把些的噻。我这趟才把些也拿唐族一起才把到个了，唐外才把，罗别才把，一起别才把。我在唐外才把，现在在公桥中呢，唐话结巴的，是有公桥中起才来，原天是说哈国呢才是唐话结巴。 너비 대바선은 단 리뷰 토바 제 상지 토비아로 지점도 요바 예체베 세바는 렌제 예체베사 세바들 당도 세 예체기 대바 좀 여러 요주사 대바 좀 삼삼 세바 세 멤버다 제 소소소 너바 임피야 보시면 하마고 봐 어제 주치네 노사 요레스
So these were the 10 ways to go astray. And next are the 10 things that are easily mistaken. And the first line says, it is possible to mistake desire for devotion. And so now this is so sometimes it happens, for example, that we have a lot of faith in someone, and then that, but only because that person is, for example, is my brother, or is someone that I'm very close to, have some ties to, and so because I'm very close to them, I feel like they are just the most amazing person, and I have so much faith in them. And then somebody else who is like a bit more distant, another person, regardless of their qualities, I think that, oh, they're not that special. And so it's just because that's my brother or somebody I'm close to it, I think that he's so great. So what we actually need to cultivate, so that's kind of the mistake between desire and devotion. So real devotion of faith has to be threefold. We have to develop a clear faith, aspiring faith, and confident faith. And the clear faith is when you clearly understand the qualities of the three jewels. And then the aspiring faith is when you want to gain the result of enlightenment. And then the confident faith is to trust, to develop or trust in the practice. And so these and if that's not clear in our mind, then sometimes it is possible that we mix up our desire with devotion.
这上去呢，他推你嘛，就小腿才能切，知道吧？那这说那嘛，啥情况？先把上嘛这样嘛个的需求的兄弟，我真的我从之前呢，在桥上去见过那设计桥上桥呢，我才去就，但去呢，他就桥多地方，明白呢？当然说好地跟这，他去这上嘛特别去的什么这，根据你嘛出来的所以要不没有啊，可能叫嘛是还法国没去了。我这大家的对那学全部学在查到个就那些人嘛那些这个路的些啥家的些卡的这，他就得这样的在查到多。我说后来这个是没到的，他就有人要我写了写没的。我这就他这对你送确实恰当，那先过他说这样的查的，他这还是在抢，可能多少我是贴吧多半多少我是，我真多半的说查的是。我才把样他把一起就嘛了吧，我才等桥上有浪个了吧，我天天就抢了吧。
And so also we are now in the degenerate age, and so being in the degenerate age, it is said that during these times there is more biases, even within the Dharma. There is biases. For example, one sees one's own Lama as most precious, but others not so. So we basically in the degenerate age, our attachment, our aversion, our prejudice and biases are on the increase. And that's really very different than how it was in the past. For example, in the past in Tibet, for example, we wouldn't really make much of a difference between the different lineages. Generally, the Tibetans would have faith in anyone, in any Lama, in any lineage. There wouldn't be so much conflict and division in terms of this is Kagyu, this is Nyingma, Gelugpa, and so on. This is all really what sort of started a bit more once we came to India. before coming to India, really, I was not myself not even much aware of there being a big division. But then having come to India, and then suddenly all these divisions, this distinction between each other then appeared, and people would talk about this lineage and that lineage. But in the past, actually, in Old Tibet, these kind of distinctions were not really in people's minds. But so now this is the degenerate time, and our prejudices and biases are just growing stronger and stronger. And during such a time when our attachment and aversion and bias increase, then we can mix up our faith and desire, and it's no longer so sure whether our faith is genuine faith.
니바데 커선 참니게 다 차관 놀사요 정도 참니게 생이 참마신다 다 차관이 하고야 싫어 뭐 잠상 뭐는 그러다 어떻게 라피사 배창을 하시나 나랑엔 소연 참반니게 차관 놀사요 세대 참바的니게可能 놀서잖아 다 참니게 장가도 니도 제 세미시에서 동 연예인 차관이 다 집에 당용을 내봐 쇼제 이제 라피와 연예인 차관이 다 집에 당용을 내봐 제 당용 내마 더 봐지 我真的在浪潮在前半年运动到现在浪潮了在 mixing 的前半休你给运动去新潮了啊提到你把的在让爸妈不起来说吧这种在些来说这种那在行在东啊车送怎么先把这种这个的问他大家俺这里那个他不但的东啊穷那这个是怎么的用的我开心我打算最近这个嘛的是啊 我现在他妈的在当中那什么，这让出的这其中的吃饭着吃着的是，他们生意他妈是嘛的是，让出就不起的了。
Then we come to the next verse. It's possible to mistake passion for loving kindness and compassion. So it is possible to mistake attachment, our attachment for loving kindness and compassion. And so how does that happen? So often when we feel that we have so much love and compassion, it's often not so sure if that's real love and compassion or something else. So for example, in our prayer, the four immeasurables, it says, may beings be free from be happy and free from sorrow and abide in a state of equanimity. And so, but we say that, but we don't actually live that way. We don't stay in a state of equanimity. We don't maintain equanimity at all. We often show a lot of compassion and love for our own side, but when it comes to others, we do not truly care. We often pretend that we care, we make kind of a show of compassion and caring, but we really just care maybe of our own kin, our parents, or our spouse, and so forth. And if something happens to someone else, then we put on a kind of a show of compassion, but we really feel that if they suffer a little bit, it's no big deal. We don't really care so much if they suffer a little bit. So on the outside, it seems that we are so compassionate, but on the inside, actually, even if it's those close to us, it's not so sure if that is true if there is real true compassion. So this is how compassion and attachment can get mixed up.
做我在现在在那学面这让是要我做这个嘛的让我去用嘛吧，我去嘛的我让从我去用嘛吧，现在可能去用面这哈个嘛吧，这让你让嘛那了去呢，这看到都在确实买几的强力节，要么是让就接受不了，所以这年也话没把强力节是接受不了，别从起过是，南上接受不了，这个人还不有的，等于那这下乡这个嘛的做解压去呢。接下来从起过学的，我上个接触什么的，让下乡这个嘛的，接触要去处有嘛的，这里做罗江的那个可能要查着呢，我曾经用过，上这说嘛个是从同路，对我有嘛的，那是做这些呢，你们去要超几年的。超几年的，真的你们他们给这说要光呢，说句了呀，你们空白当特别程度，没从起特别，我真的这些偏头有个多是说。
And so mainly we have to work on ourselves for that, because we shouldn't judge others, and in the end we don't really know whether others are sincere or are pretending, because we are not clairvoyant, we don't really know. So we can't really focus on that. We have to focus on ourselves, work on our own practice. So that's should be our main concern. That we make sure that we equalize enemies and friends, as there's no difference, regardless of what anybody else is doing. And in the beginning, that is difficult. But even if it's difficult, we still must do it. You should not feel that I just can't do it. You can't just let it go like that. There's no time for that. You have to train your mind. And if you do train your mind, you will eventually improve. And of course, sometimes it feels uncomfortable if you meet a person who maybe dislikes you, or there's a conflict. But all of that can increase your practice. If you really train your mind in love and compassion, then definitely the benefit will come from that training.
我真的他总把这些写节一节懂吧，他逻辑懂吧，那啥我他写节一个懂吧，但是下面一看那这懂吧的话，让一懂吧的吧，我这逻辑懂吧，真他好像常常可些懂你过么多啊，懂吧你怎么弄？你忙啊没这个老师，他懂你做这老师么多，这懂吧你他加分着钱真正多噻，我真的那么多，他听着当眼睛嘛的这里啊。真的，我这里是真的，这懂你的，但也懂嘛，懂吧？主把他们提倡车吧，懂吧你了吧？我真的，我说，你对生东西吧，我嘛早写了嘛，啥了？康克点睛真凶是康克点睛真凶，点真凶啊！这我话没别解密吧？我话我嘛解话我嘛的写吧没吧？气了呀，大话嘛，往往没办着没，往往错用了，碰着要嘛，他的要嘛，同界面，同界面是同界面。主把成绩，但主把成绩也做不上去嘛。他把这了抢起了，是那是把俺子你写了你们就去了有啊。我这我这当时我们这把写了那件事吧。我这东西他东把这公票的，现在那个东把一吧。他路说下来是他东把这开始他开始。那你东你一直说东把你所有都是这个样的事情的话，我真正逻辑东把抢着去，但俺得跟这边抢着去，这边抢这个就没得事。我真的我说就弄嘛来他哟，同他们老也教育嘛，老那工作明白都，从他们老教育嘛的是老那工作明白都是这东西的，老上的那老抢着吧，同他们抢着嘛吧，我这老那工作明白都是老有的吧。我听你现在这让你懂吧？你这说句人家那其他去呢，都做把他们几场，这双方的做把他们几场签的嘞。我这人们那是去特别去过的是么？逻辑懂吧？这样子搞得可不有的是，然后他把没的是，常常才弄里面看有的是。
And then the next line says, it is possible to mistake mind-made emptiness for the natural emptiness of all things. And so it's possible to mistake fabricated emptiness for the natural emptiness of all things. So the nature of the mind is empty, naturally empty, primordially empty. But it is possible that we conceptually fabricate this idea of emptiness. And then we meditate on this concept of emptiness. Actually, once a person said to me that there is nothing higher than emptiness. For this reason, we can just go for refuge to emptiness. But then I said to that, well, probably not. So emptiness here, there's a difference between the fabricated emptiness, so that person was conceptually fabricating emptiness, and the primordial natural emptiness. The primordial natural emptiness is beyond conceptual elaboration. In the root of the middle way, the wisdom of the middle way, it says that whatever arises is free from existence and non-existence, free from arising and cessation, free from coming and going. There are no, it is beyond all these limitations of conceptual elaboration. and I prostrate to the perfectly complete Buddha that is completely unelaborated. And so this line we also encounter in the Heart Sutra, but so this verse comes from the Middle Way Root Wisdom. And so if the intellect fabricates emptiness conceptually, then it just will end up being more grasping. So we are reinforcing our grasping actually by conceptualizing emptiness. Then in the Bodhicharyavatara, it says that the ultimate truth transcends the realm of the intellect, and no intellectual thought can ever lead to the ultimate. The intellect is the relative, the conventional. So what we need to practice is the natural emptiness, not the conceptually fabricated emptiness. We need to leave that behind when we practice, because any mental fabrication of emptiness, the concept of emptiness, is not genuine, is not true emptiness. And so that's the meaning of that verse. There is a danger. It's possible for us to mix up this fabricated concept of emptiness for the actual natural emptiness.
전에 다 야다 시바티 제라 추진행 당 첸다 노사우스 와다 추진행 동반이 대당 첸다 제베 따반지도냐 다 동반이 자자 강야 준레스 강야 초비어 마세 대 첸다로 와티 따반지도냐 대하 노나 초레스 와티 니 제로 송딘这种嘛다 추진행 저 대당이 동반이래 와티 제 라지 동반이 제시 너무 착수살但这把穷的到外面世界杯先把学长能中了吧？我天对，天对的啊，天对钱的这穷嘛是，那时候我们知道学长那东半年了大年那学了穷了，不管就是中了，东半年了大年送呢，大要不大马些呢，学了穷是碰着个意思。中了天对，我是说的这么多了吧钱呢，军队有的，他们都军队什么差不多有的。근데 그런 거보다 돈이 돈은 주제니 당세 국제 나송으로 와 돈이 도선 주제 당회에서 말하래 그 세송으로 돈이 도야 깔래 하고 요래서 깔래 하고 너스 또 손에 대 주제 기내로 참한테 하고 그러고서 송으로 와 텐디 와 테레데 안산 삼산다 주제 요마 돈만이 세디나데 센터서 라고 센터데 야고 요마데 타바 소비아 깔래 하고 센터데
Mhm. And the next verse says, it is possible to mistake the nihilistic view for Dharmadatum. And so some say, for example, that karma, cause and effect, does not exist. It's all empty. And that's a nihilistic view. That's mistaken. So the Dharmadatum's ultimate expanse is natural emptiness, the empty primordial awareness. But Sakya Pandita said in the Treasury of Advice that once there is grasping, you're not actually holding the authentic view. And also in the root wisdom of the middle way, it says that if you do not view emptiness correctly, then your wisdom kind of becomes ruined, becomes undermined. So you have to view emptiness, understand it correctly. And so we need to find actual emptiness. And emptiness is actually related to compassion. So normally we think that all those things that appear actually exist. So they seem to be real, but actually their essence is empty. And in the Gongchik, Jiden Songön says that when emptiness is realized, then karma, cause and effect, becomes sort of the radiance of this emptiness. So one one really realizes karma, when one realizes emptiness. And Milarepa also said that in general, it is difficult to realize emptiness. But if one realizes emptiness, one will understand the fine workings of karma, cause and effect clearly. Otherwise, if one thinks it's all empty, it all doesn't exist, then one falls into the mistake of saying that, well, nothing exists, karma doesn't exist. And that's actually a mistaken view. And such a view will not lead to liberation.
我真的到老人这边大把车，大家自己一趟车的，这大把是学的，出人生的车是大家自己一趟也没吧。我这出人生的车的个是什么样子一趟子，现在的对对这个上马巴达了。
And so the ultimate authentic view is one that goes beyond the intellect, beyond mental fabrication. So that's the space of this Dharma Dhatu, where there is no duality between an actor, subject, or object.
真的，他啥国家嘛，起头什么也不行嘛咯。他的你们在过去说开始咋的？
What time is it now? Let's see. Let's go to Chicago. In New Mexico. New Mexico, it's 1 hour later. To check Chelari.
그렇지, 다들 거래 저 주바로.
괜히 단다 계란다나 가봐요.
아, 시카고요, 다들. 저 주바로 와, 다들.
단다 New Mexico 라 저 둔바레랑.
둔바다 간 망합 그래.
nga California 다 저 주바로 와.
아는 내무서고 둔바다 nga 중앙으로
예.
시카고 집발이 나와.
아니 집바로 와.
아니도.
단다 저 둔바로 와.
둔바다 nga 중앙으로 다 제바 생각 너나.
말해 이나 족당 앞중앙 돌아.
네, 초등 중앙. 나도 중앙으로. 알레 초등 중앙으로 와. 어레.
둔바 생겨도 둔바로 와.
아레. 어때?
저 지켜서.
어레. 바 제바. 我当时国际嘛，非常系统上嘛的，工作出版节巴的切开，那出版切开，那节巴切开话，这样说是多啊。我这
둔단 체가네, 둔단 체가네.
집切开话是到上头那可以多啥的。
OK。
这样的对，那系统上嘛的，真的提升国际嘛的，我说这样，美国人嘛，老多是。
Yeah, so next week we will not have our class because Rupan is going to be in New Mexico, and we're just talking about the time difference. So at their local time, they will have a program from 6:30 to 8:30 in the evening, and that seems to be around this time now. So we will not do class next week, but we then continue the following week.
Okay, thank you. Dedication this 今天总共。 eigentlich
Sorry. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yadams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, heroes, and heroines, Yogini and assembly of Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise within my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Even at death, may the torment of suffering not arise. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such, and in the pervasive clarity of Dharmata. may I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
OK, thank you. 他真的，他到底他推出上不上说推出公布那个啥，推出嘛，推出是起推出到公他时间嘛，这样那样要不也马上这推出马上推开开始吧，今天是吧
？Also drüber said,
咱们效果推到咱们北强党这国际嘛有嘛吧
Yeah, Drupal says, I apologize that we have not been doing the classes really uninterruptedly. There has been quite some interruption, and now again next week something else is coming up. We just had one thing come up after the other these days, but it said that I'm going to really make an effort after that. I'm really going to focus and make sure that we have our class every week.
OK, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
那什么叫呢？多谢来。OK, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
See you soon. Couple of
Thank
weeks.
you. See you. Thank you.